when I started asking myself, you know, how do I want to look back on my life when I'm on my deathbed?
Mm.
And it became a bit of a deeper conversation with myself that I didn't necessarily expect to have. And even now, like I get chills kind of thinking about kind of going back to that place, because what I really thought about doing was going to a place and interviewing people whose time has run out. So going to a nursing home, it's full of people who are at the end of their road and they know it. And people go there to expire. They go there to move on. And so, we tend to think about our lives, on this, continuum, this line, whereas most of most of our lives is ahead of us. So we don't know what it's like to be at the end of that line.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all. Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? I got this gentleman here with me. This fine gentleman here sitting in front of me in the lab. Finally, it's about damn time. Jason, just to give you some context of who Mr. Reece is, I'm going to give him the introduction that he deserves because we talk about experimenting, and a lot of the experiment is proofs of concepts. And the reason why I really appreciate having this guest here in the lab with us is because when you talk about someone who's analytical, who's going to use data, who's going to measure everything, calculated risk, especially when we talk about this hospitality space and we talk about tools, we talk about the tools on your tool belt that I talk about. The reason why we have so many individuals step here into the lab is for that reason. So we can take these key proofs of concepts and apply them in our lab. And Jason, with his background, was able to do this and grow his portfolio here in Nashville predominantly, and really extract what I love the most is get more with less by using things as dynamic pricing tools, AI, you name it, to not only successfully operate his business with systems, but also do it in a way that doesn't take up all of his time. And I'm so excited because I've myself have gotten consulting from Jason, who was kind enough to really get into the weeds of pricing strategies. I'm so ever grateful for that because I've been able to get into his mind and understand how his mind works and why he thinks certain ways. And so when I think of someone who is qualified to wear this lab coat and step into the lab with us, to talk about the ins and outs of the short-term rental industry and how to think, not what to think, but how to think, I think of Jason Reece. So Jason, what's happening, brother? How you doing? Welcome to the lab.
Hey, that's a great intro, man. I appreciate that. I don't know if I deserve it, but
come on, man. See, I got to do that because you're just gonna pop on here and you're gonna pretend to be this, this Joe Schmo next door. But I got to give you the introduction that you deserve, man. I just want to send out my appreciation on the air. I was just telling Experimentation, this is just an episode with Jason and I are just gonna chat it up, and you guys get to join, and you're gonna see why I always love to geek out with Jason when it comes to this space. But I always like to say you are a reflection, or your business is a reflection of who you are. So Jason, I want to give an opportunity for you to share a little bit about your background. I know you come from a background where you had a job that you actually really liked and that you really stepped up and climbed that corporate ladder, for lack of a better word, and made some gains. And then you got to a point where you're like, I don't know, like I want a something different, more of a challenge. Is that right? Like what brought you to this side of the equation, or this side of the short-term rental world? Because I know it's not your typical story that we often hear with others here in the lab.
yeah, I think it starts out sounding like it's maybe the typical story, but I'm not sure that it is, but I guess it's up to the listener. Um, so for me, I started out in medical device when I was 26. So that was after doing a little bit of work with my family's company in marketing. And so from 26 on, I started with Johnson & Johnson in the medical device field of electrophysiology. So there we focused on the 3D mapping and treatment of abnormal heart rhythms. So I started as a clinical there, stepped up to a sales position eventually, and I was in sales for 4 years until I moved into a marketing role where I managed the 3D mapping software portfolio for the US. And in that role was responsible for some of our highest profile projects and launches for that 2-year time period. And what I really loved about that role is that it appealed to so many sides of me, because I tend to think of myself as a Swiss Army knife, and I'm a little ADD. Sometimes I feel like, because I have interest in so many different things. And I think that interest also fuels me to be good at so many different things. And at least that fuels my pursuit of being good at those things. And I felt very, very fortunate to have the career that I had. But over time, I think my enjoyment of the career, the reward that I got back from my effort, so I tend to call that return on effort, it dwindled over time. And once I got into that corporate role, it was an amazing role, amazing team, amazing company, and amazing innovations and all the things. But at the end of the day, the role existed on a hamster wheel, and there's no way around it. And for me, I like to get, if I'm going to get to the top of a mountain, or if I'm going to take on this difficult task, I like to be able to look back and see the progress that I made. But in that particular role, you just never really had that opportunity because you have multiple high stress, high visibility projects that are happening all concurrently. So when one finishes, you have to direct your attention to the next. And once the burnout started to set in, I really started to ask myself, what I wanted to do, with my life. So you have those deeper conversations with yourself. Hopefully everybody does, several times through their life, so they can make sure that they're on the trajectory that they really want to be. And I think for me, the tough part became when I started asking myself, how do I want to look back on my life when I'm on my deathbed? And it became a bit of a deeper conversation with myself that I didn't necessarily expect to have. And even now, like, I get chills kind of thinking about kind of going back to that place. Because what I really thought about doing was going to a place and interviewing people whose time has run out. So going to a nursing home that's full of people who are at the end of their road, and they know it. And people go there to expire. They go there to move on. And so, we tend to think about our lives, on this, continuum, this line, whereas most of our lives is ahead of us. So we don't know what it's like to be at the end of that line with all of our life behind us.
Damn.
And so when you think about that perspective, that change, it sets in. And if you think about it deep enough, then there should be some sort of emotion that's evoked. Whether or not, I don't know if you can see that, but
yeah.
But it's pretty deep, I think. And so I considered going to have these conversations with people because I wanted to be thorough, and I take my time, the time that I have here, I take it seriously, and I do want to spend it well. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't need to go have those conversations because I knew what the answers were. At least as it related to that particular decision. And so, I've always had the entrepreneurial pull. I knew from long ago that, at some point I'll probably start my own business. I just didn't know when it would be. From a kid, from younger ages, I was I was always selling things on eBay, buying and selling things, flipping things, trying to make money somehow, some way, and always kind of ideating on, businesses to start or apps to start when that was the whole big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that fire was always there. It was just, a little guy for a while. But then once my burnout started to wear thin the barrier between my career and, what was kind of knocking at the door. Once that burnout set in, I decided that, listen, I'm at this crossroads. I'm at a fork in the road, and I don't see anything that really makes me happy going down this path right now. This is a great opportunity, great time, a great realization for me to pursue this other path, this thing that I've wanted to do for a while, because I know that if I continue down the path I'm on and neglect this piece that I know I want to do at some point, and I make it to my deathbed having never done that, then I will regret that.
So let me ask you, Jason, because you're bringing it to. I'm literally thinking this as you're saying it. Was it more of, and I wrote this down as you're speaking, because I thought it was profound when you think about like being on your deathbed or being close to it. It's like, is it the who Jason was able to become, or is it the what Jason was able to do that you like resonate with?
Oh, well, when you say was,
Yeah. So if when you're looking back, because I'm thinking, is it are we focused on the who you were able to become, or is it the what you were able to do? Because I'm trying to think that you're saying this and we don't know kind of like the driving motive. So is it more like, I'm not going down this path because it's not going to allow me to do what I want to do in my life? Or is it more, it's not going to allow me to become the person that I want to be? And you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if there was, do you see those as one, or do you actually lean on one towards the other? So who versus the what? Like when you think of like your life and like what drove you to like make a pivot, was it the who, or was it the what, or was it neither? I'm just curious. What was the driver?
I think it is both, because like the what that drove me was what I wanted to do, what I wanted to have done. But I wanted to have done those things so that in the end, the who that I am is a person that's happy and content.
Okay. So I like that. So would you say then, because and this is actually a really good conversation to have, because I think there's two sides, right? And I know my buddy Michael Sjogren, who kind of brought me into this short-term rental world. He said it, if you remember, we're in Nashville together. He says, listen, like, I didn't get into this place because I love it. I got into the space so I could get my freedom back and never have my kid ever be dependent on me taking time off again, right? So it's used as a vehicle. And because you're like a Swiss Army knife, like you said, I'm wondering if, and this is the beautiful thing, is do you see your short-term rental space as a vehicle to kind of untap into more of what Jason needs to do, or do you see it more as a, no, this is like what I'm passionate about? And I want to highlight that because I think there's this idea that, goes around about like what you're passionate about. I feel like you're passionate about many things. That's why I'm asking that question. Like, do you see it as a vehicle or something you're actually originally passionate about? You just actually recently discovered that you're passionate about real estate.
No, I think that's an interesting question. Something I've thought about, quite a bit. It's chase your dreams, follow your heart, that kind of, direction.
I think that's bullshit, by the way. I think you should chase. No, 100%. Like, I think chasing your dreams is 100%, but I think do what you love is bullshit, because I understand that doing what you love means that, like, I love entrepreneurship. I love to work. I love problem solving. Therefore, it doesn't feel like work, right? It feels like a challenge. I'm an athlete. So I know you're an athlete too. So it's like a sport, right? It's like competitive. But the reason I don't believe in like do what you love just on that basis is because we live in a world of supply and demand. And if I don't provide value to the world, again, there's two things there. find a vehicle that will allow you to do what you love on your own time, where it doesn't even matter. But if you're trying to like make a living and trying to get out, I think you should be very strategic, right? Just the way we're strategic in the properties that we pick is based on the demand that there is for that product to get in exchange for value or dollars, right? And so I think when I say that, it should be specific, that I say it more on the entrepreneurship / marketplace, not like do what you love as in like passion. You should do what you're passionate about, but ideally you have a vehicle that allows you to do that. So it doesn't matter that you're not exchanging time for money. So went on a little bit of a rant there, but I wanted to just clarify what I meant by that when I say that that's bullshit. What are your thoughts, Jason? Do you agree with me or am I tripping?
No, I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying is accurate. But I think a lot of times too, people don't see the forest through the trees. You know, well, I don't necessarily like doing that, so I don't want to do it. But it's like, okay, well, could it be a means to an end to allow you to get to other things that
exactly
you do enjoy and you can enjoy for 40 years instead of maybe not the next 10 years, but the 40 years after that, you could absolutely just revel in your life, absolutely kill it, and meet all your goals and dreams, and like have your family and be happy, you know, whatever it is. But I think a lot of people do subscribe to too many quotes that they read online. You know, it's pretty easy to live by those, and it's also very easy to say no to things. So if you know, if you say no to something, you know, you say it's because it doesn't align with, you know, what you want to do with your life, or with, you know, what you love to do. Yeah, that may be true, but a lot of times I think it just has to do with somebody's motivation and their level of vision, and how far they can see down the path. But you know, to expand on that, I think the interesting thing for me, because I have gone back and forth on this, I know I'm lucky enough to know what it's like to have a career that you do absolutely love. At least for the first half of mine, like I absolutely adored it. I mean, I genuinely felt and reflected often that I was very lucky to have a job that was as rewarding as mine. And it was rewarding in all aspects. You know, the personal reward of helping people would be in the procedure room. I'm co-piloting a procedure with a physician, and you know, what I'm speaking to the physician, what I'm advising, what I'm seeing, what I've learned in the past, and I'm now using to help me in this situation, which led me to this conclusion, which now I've spoken to the physician, and the physician, after several hours of struggle, is now able to fix that patient. Like, that's extremely rewarding, right? And if you do that a lot, then you're valuable to that physician, and ultimately, you know, for our business, that reflects well financially, right? So you get both sides of that coin. You're able to help somebody, you're able to help the physician, you're able to help the patient, and then, you know, ultimately help your family if you have one. And it was also very challenging. It was a super cerebral line of work, and so a lot of reward all the way around. And you know, while I reflect on that, and I've often thought, if I leave that field, am I going to have the same? Am I going to be able to find that in entrepreneur? Am I going to be able to find that in entrepreneurship or in Airbnb or real estate investing, whatever? You know, the answer is I don't know. You know, I'm still figuring that out. I'm still building this, right? Like the first people I met outside of doing this on my own was all of you guys back in March. I mean, you and I were connected prior, you know, through Zoom calls, but you know, for the past year and a half, 2 years. But in terms of building my network and like building my team and you know, just your tribe, like I'm still on the front end of all of that, and all of that is what makes you really settle into a line of work. And so, you know, I don't know if I'm going to reach that level of, say, explicit passion for this work, but what I can tell you, going back to your point, is that I don't know that I need to, because like what this enables, what it has enabled for me is invaluable. I mean, my days I own completely. I don't have to do a lot of anything. Some days I don't do a lot of anything, to be frank, but my business runs like a top. I have 370 something reviews with 4.97 stars. I spend about an hour a week managing my guests and managing that business. I spend the rest of the week building out other streams of income and looking for other properties and just doing other entrepreneurial things. And I take a lot of time running errands, and and I take my time at the grocery store, and I get to pet my dog, and I get to take them to the park. And if I had a family, then all that extra time would be immensely meaningful for me. So there's so many people that have families that, you know, take out the grocery store, put in, you know, spend time with their kids, go on vacations, family, you know, whatever it is. But in the work I'm doing right now, it's satisfying. I like problem solving. I like getting it right. But I'm ultimately doing it for, you know, what's on the other side of that.
Damn, man, I love that. That was a good segue too. So tell, because you took your time, and I'm curious, when you had the dream job, career, etc., right? Were you investing in real estate at all, or were you just renting, or what were you doing at the time? Like, when did you start to like get the first property and then the second and third? How did that come about? What was the timeline?
Well, so I've moved 4 or 5 times, so I didn't buy much real estate because I knew I was going to be mobile. I was pursuing, you know, I was climbing the ladder. I was trying to stay flexible, and the promotions were happening every couple of years, so it didn't make sense for me to buy a whole lot. I did buy one property to live in, which I soon sold. And I bought an investment property in 2015. It was an empty lot in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, where I'm from. And that turned out to be an amazing play. So I sold it for 5 times the value I paid for it, and 1031 exchanged it into my third property here. So it went from
time out. What was the play like when you bought land? Because people don't buy land a lot. What was the initial thought? Like, you're like, this is going to be a great location, therefore I'm going to buy this plot of land, or it was like, I'm going to buy this plot of land to build, and then you said, never mind, I'm going to sell it?
Yeah, it's kind of I like the story anyway. So I'm from Greenville. You know, I'm fortunate enough to grow up in a household where, you know, I was exposed to investments from early childhood. And so my dad has some commercial real estate, and his office, actually, our family business was downtown, and this property was in that area. And Greenville, South Carolina's real estate, if you don't know, has been growing faster than almost Austin, Texas. So it was the fastest growing city in Texas, yeah, for a long time.
Damn.
Yeah. And, you know, we're talking 22% growth rates annually, which,
excuse me.
Yeah, it's wild.
What?
It is wild. And I think it has eclipsed Austin now.
I'm gonna put that in. I'm gonna put that in. Have you heard of datausa.io?
No, but if it's for real estate, then I would love to know about it.
So it's for data, and I know you're a data junkie. But anyways, I'm putting that as we speak. Greenville, North Carolina.
What is it?
What's that?
What's the name? Data what?
datausa.io. Can't help myself, you guys. I got the AI king of all. And then you can, what's really cool is you can add a comparison, right? So let me just do, like, if I do Austin, Texas, and then you can do like a side-by-side analysis of like the census info and all that. Or I don't know wherever it's pulling it from. But anyway, so Greenville is popping, and you're like, all right, let me get me some of that.
So absolutely.
And that's what you said in your head. Like, you said, let me get me some of that.
I did. I probably did. Right. Honestly, I don't know if I can say the drop F-bomb on here, but
yeah, of course. Kids are asleep.
Yeah. honestly, this is how I talk to myself. I have said several times, I've got to get off the fucking sideline.
Mm.
Greenville had been growing year over year over year over year. I mean, for 10 years, it was on top 10 lists left and right. It wasn't like that when I grew up. So it took a while for me to really believe that it was an investable place and that it made sense. And I think that's the case for a lot of people that grew up in a town and they see it transform. They're like, they paid what for that place? Like, that's crazy. So you have to shake that for one. So once I just saw after more than a decade of growth, I finally decided, and I saw this park that was coming in, that was coming in on the right side of this residential area. And then on the left side of this residential area, it was starting to get surrounded, and they're putting a Starbucks in over here, a new development here. And so this whole neighborhood was starting to fill out, and they're starting to tear houses down. And it became a pretty popular place where people, creep through driving, like, looking around for lots all the time. And so I decided to just go knocking on some doors. And so I found a couple that owned the property next door, and I offered them $40,000 cash for that property. They ultimately
for
said,
that lot.
For the lot is like 0.15 acres. Yeah.
But hold on, why not? And just, I want to see how you're thinking here. This is why I have you here. Why not? Hey, let me try to get in on a first time home buyer, 3% down, 5%, like, and so I can get a piece of this action. Like, why land automatically? Like, was there a seed planted there that land can go further? Like, that's not very traditional, is what I'm saying. So where did that thought come from? Is that like
because it wasn't time for me to build? It wasn't a good time for me. I was super busy with my career. I was working long hours, traveling overnight oftentimes. So I couldn't manage a build for one, and the new construction wasn't available in that area. There are very few homes. I tried that route, but it just never happened.
And what was the exit strategy when you bought? Was it let me just hold on to it and see what happens? I know you're getting to it, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, the exit strategy, the plan was to hold the property until I got to a point where I could rest and actually take on an interstate build, so a cross country build, because ultimately I was going to have to manage that from half a country away. And so I wanted to build a home there, rent it out, long-term rent. This was before I was on the Airbnb trail, and then ultimately sell in 5 or 10 years and make $500,000. That was kind of the goal. And so because I had that mindset and that perspective going into that deal, as I got letters from people and phone calls from people asking me to buy the property, I get one a month almost. It seemed like very popular area. And as I got those letters, I'd always turn them down. Of course, I'm in a position of power. I don't have a need to sell it. I'm not motivated by making $50,000. If I were to sell it for 90 or 100, at that point, my career was going really well. I was making a lot of money, but also I was investing, and anybody knows those years, then almost every investment was doing really well back then. So I had no incentive to sell anything. On occasion, I would poke around and see, okay, well, what would you offer? The offers were coming in at, I don't know, $60,000, $70,000, and this is like, a few years even after, with a lot of growth around the area. I was not entertained by that whatsoever. So eventually, 5 years go by, or I guess no, it was 8 years. 8 years go by, and a guy reaches me on Instagram, which was the first time I'd had somebody find me on Instagram, and somehow he did that. I don't know how he did that, because he didn't text me, which he could find my information. And it was an older guy who didn't have any posts. He had no activity on Instagram, and so for some reason that was his default communication strategy somehow. I don't, still puzzled by that. But regardless, we started talking, and the conversation led to, just he kept saying, just throw a number out. I was like, nah, I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound greedy. I'm honestly, my plan is to do this, what I just told you. And
very, by the way, that's a very on brand Jason response. I don't want to sound greedy. It's business, Jason. Drop that number, bro.
Well, it's hard to think that I handled it the wrong way after I got the price that I got, but it's it came through. He came through, and so I paid $40,000 for the place. I said, all right. I mean, if I were to be motivated to sell it, at this point, this is last year. I'm in the Airbnb game. I'm like, okay, I can 1031. I've learned all this about real estate, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like chest deep, neck deep in real estate.
Drinking the Kool-Aid, brother. You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
I've learned. I watch more tax strategy videos on YouTube than probably any CPA in America. So at this point, like, I know some tax strategy too, and so I'm looking at what I can do with the cash now that I'm in Airbnb. I'm like, I'm not generating any money from this place whatsoever. It's just sitting there. I'm paying taxes on it every year, and if I 1031 it, then I can use that cash to put a big down payment on another place that's gonna, generate 80, 100 grand a year. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll actually entertain selling. It kind of makes sense. And so I told them that I would take $225 for the property. And this is after everybody else is only offering 70, 80%.
You named. I was waiting for him. Like, Jason, quit playing games with us. 225.
Yeah.
Oh my God! All
so
right.
He said,
this is all through the DMs.
I think we moved over to text message.
Oh, okay, grown man shit. You're like, we elevated from. Because I was gonna say your DM game is strong. Dang. So, that's crazy. I had no idea. This is why I love doing this in live. Wow. So did he bite?
So he said, okay, let me talk to my wife. And then within like 30 seconds, he responded and said, okay, we'll take it. And I said, boom. Like, that's amazing. Because the comps around there were not going for 250 or 225.
That was going to be my next question. What was
the highest comp in the area was about 130.
Oh my God. You're a freaking ninja, bro. Your ninja status just went up. I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you 1031 that bad boy.
I 1031 it, bought a property that should gross close to 90 this year. So
wow. Wait, time out. Did my man was that a cash offer? Because you can't get financing on that. Golly, they really got it like that out there, huh? Okay.
Yeah. This guy
$250,000 on some land. What is he building?
He has some other property. He bought, or he sold his home, which was it's like what do you call it? It's like an Italian kind of villa style home, which was worth several $1 million. He sold that, and they were looking to build a Charlestonian style house in this neighborhood. The unfortunate thing is, which I don't know, I'm assuming here, but when I go back home, I would drive by and I see if it's sold or see if he's built anything. But last time I went by there, it was for sale again, and it's still been for sale. He's trying to get rid of it now, and it's not gonna go.
What? How is he having trouble selling that?
Because he paid too much for it. So that's the unfortunate side of it. But
well, not for Jason. Jason is cheesing. That's why you got a smile on your face all the time. Experiment Nation, I have a special gift for you. If you're in the Airbnb space, or if you're thinking of getting into the Airbnb space, you're an operator with multiple units, your first unit, your 100th unit, just about to get into Airbnb, you are going to want to get this blueprint that I put together for you. Now, I want to give context of how this was put together, because sometimes people assemble these ideas and top 10 lists, top 5, top this, and it doesn't have any true valued vetted content. What I've done is I've surrounded myself by the best top short-term rental Airbnb operators in the world. I co-authored a best-selling book with them called Hospitable Host. I've had them on my platform and interviewed them to get the questions that you guys want to learn the most from into the episode to show the real estate experiment, as you know. And I've also paid tens and thousands of dollars to be sitting in the room to get these notable insights that we implement ourselves as short-term rental operators. I'm a short-term rental specialist. I'm licensed to do it in the respective markets. You know, we build ours in Georgia. We have a management company ourselves. We're Airbnb superhosts. So we not only talk the talk, but we walk the walk, but we still consistently surround ourselves with the best in the space to get us further ahead. And this is what we've put together, an Airbnb Millionaire Blueprint, where you don't just hear it from me, you hear it, and it's an aggregate list. It's 21 pillars from short-term rental operators worldwide who've implemented this and it's worked. And these are the exact same way we've been able to get results and get the same results from implementing these insights that I've pulled from multiple faces, right? Some people have tons of arbitrage units like TJ Tijani. Some like Bill Faith have just a few. Some like Michael Shogun has boutique hotels. They've scaled, and whether you have 1 unit, 10 units, or 100th unit, or about to get into your first unit, you're going to want to have this blueprint that you can utilize universally wherever you are in the world. You want to get this. I put together, we took a lot of time to put this together this year after all that we've been implementing in our lab, for you to have a guide that you can leverage, right? That you can use and implement. We've also given and tagged everybody that we've featured in and giving them credit, so you know where the source is coming from, and you can check out their Instagram. You can see that they're vetted individuals that we not only work with and trust but learn from, because sometimes you get a lot of different information, and I want to make sure I give that credit of where you can find out that person. And we've also, if they've been on our show, we've also linked the episode within this free blueprint. It's the Airbnb Millionaire Blueprint. Want to make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com. Once you get there, you'll see the pop-up that says I have something for you. Just scroll down, enter your name, enter your email, and we'll get it right sent to you. Don't want to sleep on this. We've been putting this together for quite some time, and I know that it will serve you regardless of where you are in your journey, to have an Airbnb Millionaire Blueprint that has been collectively vetted and has been sourced from operators who are operating at a high scale. Experiment Nation, you're welcome. Make sure to go to experimentrealestate.com and get your Airbnb Millionaire Blueprint, so that you can also scale to the level of experiment that these practitioners like ourselves have done just for you, Experiment Nation. We'll see you on the other side. No, that's awesome, man. Good for you for bird in the hand. I mean, that's amazing. 1031 exchange, and then did I see that one when I was visiting you? This
Yes, you did. I think it was the first one that we went in that had the Dolly Parton mural up top. It's 3-story, had the rooftop, deck with a skyline view.
Damn, that's a nice property, man. Good for you. So taking it, so you, this goes back to the land play, was when you that land play you held on to, and then and this is why I love real estate, and then it paid dividends back when you were already, this was your third property that it paid for. Talk about the first STR deal that you had, which would be considered your second real estate deal ever. What made you do that? And at that point, were you done the job, or no? I think you were kind of like in your final year or something like that. Like what was the timing with that?
It's actually funny. It's kind of going back to this time gets me around a lot of other things that were happening that I'll try to pull in without taking too long. But
take your time, brother.
In October of 2020, I bought my first property, and so that was me coming actually off the couch during COVID, I set out in 2019. Yeah, let me rewind. In 2019, I left my career with Johnson & Johnson, or at least I set out to. They threw a in 2019, I left my career with Johnson & Johnson. That was the goal. They threw a leave of absence my way. Said take 6 months and figure it out. And I didn't really want to take that, but I did. And I didn't want to take it because I didn't want to know that I had a fallback plan. I wanted to burn the ships, because when you burn the ships, then you're going to make it work, right? You're not getting back home. Boats are gone. You're on the island. You gotta make it work.
Yeah.
So 2019, I went to Europe anyways, came back, decided to work with my old company for a little while, in a kind of a limited role, while I figured out what my next steps were. And I didn't know at the time that I was going to do Airbnb. I was actually looking at drop shipping. Fast forward.
By the way, been there, done that. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Oh, dude, we ran a real serious operation. Like,
really?
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe you didn't know that.
No.
Well, so just as a FYI for you guys, for Experiment Nation, if you don't know, me and the twins, you guys probably hear me talking about it, 2 twins that actually the ones we just closed on together in this last deal. They were my roommates, and they've had a successful exit very young. And then we built an e-commerce store. We had like 6 different SKUs. We're importing, we were drop shipping, but we had also like, we had a lot of different SKUs, and we were going like, 100K months. It was a pretty large operation. But then what we learned, we had like a Facebook ad rep, because we were spending like 60K a month on Facebook ads. It was nuts. But then we realized real quick, like that 100K that I said, minus the 60K, minus the cost of goods sold, dude, we were profiting like 10,000. Like, so like, wow. Okay, so that's how business works. Like, you got to know your cost of goods sold, your expenses. So there's a lot of lessons learned there. But yeah, we did it at scale for like a good amount of time. So that's funny that I'm not surprised you're a systems guy that scales. But yeah, one thing I learned is there's a very big difference between gross revenue and profit.
Big time. Yep. And
yeah, a lot of gotta know your numbers.
A lot of people quote gross revenue all the time.
Exactly. And a lot of people will sell you on that. But one thing we learned too, and none of these coaches, because we had coaches, we're talking about the fulfillment on the back end. Dude, it's a shit show if you don't have systems in place in VAs, which we had to build. That's how I got a lot of my experience working with VAs. It's like, it's one thing to get all these sales on the front end, but then your fulfillment, what does your customer service looks like? You have Zoho on the back end. Like, when people are like, where's my stuff? You just ordered it. It's coming in with, like, it gets pretty bad if you don't have systems in place. So that's but you would have crushed that too, Jason. I know that. So you looked at drop shipping. So what made you stop at like the whole Airbnb thing? Because I know you're very analytical too. So what was it that, like, what was the draw for those who are listening who are like, oh, like people are talking about this Airbnb thing? Like, what was the draw for you?
So I think for me, going back to the, probably 2 or 3 questions ago, we're talking about like pursuing your passion and, enjoying what you do. For me, coming from a place where I absolutely adored my career and the work that I was doing, I was concerned about not being fulfilled from that standpoint. And so, I spent a lot of time thinking about, what am I actually going to get enjoyment from doing? And it doesn't necessarily have to be as profound as, my medical device career, but I'd like to enjoy it. And ultimately for me, the drop shipping model, I couldn't find a product that I really identified with that I wanted to sell that I felt like would be a great representation of me, that I would enjoy getting behind and therefore represent myself well. If I wasn't going to be motivated to do it, if I only got money from it, then it wasn't enough for me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I was in a position again, and there's kind of a theme of being in a position of power. I think when you're in a position where you don't need something, then you can do what's right for you. And so,
say it again for the people in the back. My goodness, when you're in a position, yeah, Wow.
And
But that's
when you're in a position of power, not in a position of need, then you
mm,
can do what's right for you, and you can do what's right for the other person on the other side of that. And I took that into my sales career as well. I know I'm getting sidetracked, but I do think it's important that to tie this point up is that I would never trust a salesperson that doesn't know how to manage money, because their motivations are just staying afloat. If they're in debt because they've risen their you know standard of living to a point where they have to make this sale, then do you think that their motivations are whole?
no. And it's such a good not segue, but I say that all the time with realtors, right? You don't want a starving realtor to sell your deal. All right. And I know this because I'm licensed, but I don't make a living off being licensed. And so I can kind of give that very like, okay, like I wouldn't do this deal, right? But if you have someone who's hungry for their commission, and this is not to put realtors on blast because I'm licensed, I'm a realtor, but just be mindful of that. Just like you said, like I like working with people who don't need my money, right? Because it's kind of like I know that there's a little bit of trust, but if you're really hungry and you'll sell me anything, then I think that's like any industry. I think you should look at that. And to your point, what you said, the managing of the money, like my CPA owns real estate and owned real estate and own a lot of it. And so, like I like to learn from people who have that. They don't need to sell you something or consulting you. They've already made their money. Like my coaches that I pay, they don't need the money. They get fulfilled from coaching and therefore have a high ticket price, but I could fuck off and they'd be okay. Right?
Yeah.
Like they would really be okay. They've made their money. So, anyways, just a good thing to plan. So I love that you said that, and it goes back to your. I think sorry, I interrupted you there, but I had to chime in because I resonated with it. So going back to the point, is you chose then Airbnb because
Chose Airbnb because it was an intersection of a lot of my interests and something I thought that I was well suited to do. So for a long time, I wanted to do more real estate, but because I was moving around a lot, I didn't feel like it was the best thing for me to do, considering that. And for a while, I spent time in Arkansas, and frankly, I just didn't want to buy a lot of real estate in Arkansas. Um, but with that, once I decided that Airbnb was going to be the horse to take me into the next chapter, the vehicle. Um, that's when I really started to dive in. I'd been doing a lot of research. In 2019, when I went to Europe for 3 months, I created a note on my phone of unique solutions to space problems that I saw in all the Airbnbs that I stayed in. So I knew that it was a possibility for me to go down that route. I just didn't know for sure what I was going to do. But just in case, I was like, that's interesting. Wow, it's really cool how they solved that problem. Cool how they did that. Wow, this is a really small space, and there's a single car garage they turned into a full living room with a bathroom and a shower and a bed and a kitchen counter, sink, stove. I'm like, how did they do that? I would have looked at that space and said that's entire. It was literally a storage unit basically, and I stayed in that for like 4 days. So, while I was in Europe, I began indexing some things that I might need if I decided to pursue this route. And when I decided not to do drop shipping, because I was like, I just don't feel like it's going to be rewarding enough for me, Airbnb seemed to be the space for me, because ultimately at the end of the day, I really like working with people and I like serving people. And I've done that really my entire career. I started in restaurants when I was 14 at Chick-fil-A, believe it or not. I did wear
yes.
the cow suit. Yes, I know you're
No
curious.
way. That's
I
awesome.
did dance on the side of the road wearing a spotted cow suit. And I sold Chick-fil-A sandwiches at the drive-through for $2.51 a piece. So from that restaurant to the next restaurant to the next restaurant, there were 8 years of hospitality work, and then I minored in hotel, restaurant, tourism management.
Well,
And
hold on,
so,
hold on. What? I didn't know that. What did
yeah,
you what did you do? You
I minored
you
my
minored in
major. Yeah, my major, I double majored in management and marketing, and then I minored in hotel, restaurant, tourism management.
dude, you honed yourself for this. You didn't even know it. Come on, bro. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't even think I was cognizant of that when I decided to go this route, but um,
That's kind of
just
dope.
working with people, and I think pleasing people, and developing relationships with new people has always been something that's appealed to me. And then you take the technology piece that Airbnb brings to it, um, along with the design and architecture piece that comes with the actual real estate. Then you have the investing side of it that comes with real estate. Then you have the tax strategies that come with real estate. Like all that being strategic. I mean, design is strategic. Tax strategy obviously is strategic. Using technology is creative, solves problems. There's so many things there that were just wrapped up in this industry that I felt like I was going to enjoy, and I have enjoyed it. I absolutely have. It hasn't been like when I was in my call it the honeymoon phase of my medical device career, but that was kind of like your first love. Is like, is it ever really going to be the same?
Oh, come on, Jason. Don't do that. Don't be that guy.
I just mean that from a naive standpoint. Like,
I know. Come on, give the people some hope out here, man. That's all we got.
Like, okay, and now my expectations of love are a lot more realistic, and they're still great.
Stop. Jason, you're hilarious. Wait, so tell me, speaking of like first loves and all that, and finding the right property, do you use any emotions, or you're very like, what is your criteria, or like that you would want to share with us that makes you identify what a winner is? And on a super high level, I know there's a lot of things you look at, you're a data guy, but like, what do you think are some of those love at first sight kind of properties, and then with the data to back it up?
So, important question. I think it ties into ultimately your last question, which is like how I got started, how I chose my first property. Mm-hmm. So the strategy that I ultimately came up with was, first off, I didn't want to compete with hotels. That made me nervous. And I'm traditionally a highly calculated person. I want certainty and all these things. I had to overcome a lot of that because you don't get a lot of certainty when you go into something new. You sure as hell don't get a sure thing, or at least you never really know. You never truly know. Yeah. And so the strategy that I built out for myself was that I wanted a unique property that was at least 2 bedrooms, and unique being something that hotels could not easily replicate. So it had something inherent about it that was unique. And now you see on Airbnb the categories at the top that they released, I think it was last summer. All those are essentially ways to categorize unique properties. They have castles, they have UFOs, they have boats and ski, whatever. So the first property as soon as I walked into it, I knew it. And it was a building that was built in 1865. And that's the year the Civil War ended, the year that slavery was abolished. Like, the building has been through some shit, right? It's seen a lot. And now it's recently renovated, and people can live in it. They can stay in it for a weekend. You can live in it if you want. It's a really cool space. Exposed brick. The unit that I looked at had arched windows, exposed brick, 15-foot ceilings, vaulted ceilings with the original beams stretching from side to side. I mean, massive rusted hardware. You're showering under a 15-foot ceiling. I mean, it's a really cool place. And it's kind of a mashup of the new and old because of the renovation. You got some sheetrock now and some painted surfaces and things that just kind of really bring it into the modern era. And so when I walked in, I absolutely loved it. I put an offer in, I got the offer accepted. It was during COVID still, so that was me buying while other people are fearful, right? And unfortunately, this previous owner, this was their first Airbnb property. They bought it right before the pandemic hit. And so they kind of got smacked in the mouth. And so they were out of state investors. And so they were like, we just want to get rid of it. And so I got the property at $550 a square foot, which I didn't even realize that at the time. And I say that being a calculated person, I was surprised that I didn't know that I paid $550 a foot. I didn't even do the math. And that's because it doesn't really matter.
What's for context? Is that on the high or low side is this Nashville?
Yes, that's a good question. For Nashville, on the high side would have been like $300 a foot.
Oh shit.
For most real estate at that time. And so when I realized after the fact that I paid $550 a foot, I was like, damn, that's high. I'm glad I didn't know that because I might not have bought the place. And the reason I didn't know that was because I wasn't solving for price per foot. It's not a typical real estate play. I was solving for revenue versus sale price. And so I looked at sale price with the revenue that it promised, which at that time was about 90,000 is what I was expecting. And I thought the numbers worked for me. And so I was like, okay, I can net this much after my costs. After you run the numbers, right? You don't ever buy anything without running the numbers. I did not realize that so many people don't run the numbers and don't make informed decisions. I didn't realize that until the conference when like nobody raised their hand when they asked if you use a calculator to.
Yeah, Mike said that when he I was blown away because I went to his mastermind in our Orlando or whatever it was, and he's like, Ruben, I can't tell you how often like I find out people are not running the numbers. I'm like, what do you mean? Like for me, that's like I don't know what that's like. It just seems a little reckless. I don't know what to say. So it didn't occur to me that was a thing. Like, what are people just buying off like the gut feeling that they have? Like, I don't understand.
Exactly. We don't understand, but that's also why we survive in this space, because that's so foreign to us. But that said, I realized I paid $550 a foot. Right now, there's a comp in that building for $1,100 a foot. That's a double in 2 years.
Damn.
And my down payment on that was $61,500. So the equity that I have is almost 10x from that 2 years ago.
That's wild, man.
And so that was just executing on a plan that I felt uncomfortable with. I knew logically it was sound. I knew that this was a place that hotels aren't going to compete with. I knew that it was a bedroom count that made a lot of sense here in Nashville. It's 3 beds, which can sleep 10 people here. And I knew that it was a cool space, and I felt like it would do well on Airbnb. But I did not expect the equity to do what it's done. And I wouldn't have done any of that had I not gotten outside my comfort zone and just taken a swing, And so that was the first place. And I actually did it with a property manager who was already there. So I inherited him. And ultimately, I badgered him enough with questions because I'm, analytical. Not just analytical, but I quit my career to do this. Right. And so I wanted to have my hands on the system. I wanted hands on the controls. Right. And ultimately I took over after a few months. And
then you drove him out with all your questions. Like, you know what, dude, you can just have this, dude. Leave me alone. You're not saying anything, so that's what makes it the funniest. You're like, yep, that's what happened.
Oh my God. In a lot of ways, and he handled it so well. I still keep up with him today. He's a great guy. But also did 114,000 on that place last year versus the 90 that I was expecting.
That's what he did, you're saying?
That's what I did.
Oh, that's what you did instead of projected 90. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, good shit. And now so what's the when you think of like, what are you at? Was it 5 properties or 4?
I have 4 that I own, 1 that I manage, and my house that I am adding to Airbnb within the next few weeks.
That's awesome. What's
As a
the
part-time.
play? Yeah, what's the play for you? And like, let me ask you, because when I first got into this space, I was like, listening to bigger podcasts, I did a lot of my research and as well, and I was ready to take action. I heard a lot about multifamily syndication and all that, right? Now, I took the short-term rental pill and then I never looked back. So curious to how you see these asset classes. Do you feel that this is your season? And when I say your season, I mean the season of life where I'm going to be an STR investor and then potentially transition into another asset class? Or do you see more like, no, this is what I know, this is what I love, I'm going to double down on this and continue to get more? What's the vision?
No, I think my season, I'll say season for, strictly an STR host is, it may come to a close as just being an STR host here in the next year. Because I think that's just part of the bigger chapter of me being an entrepreneur. And I think the short-term rental is one vehicle to allow me to live that life, right? So from here, I'm looking at other commercial opportunities, maybe even a hybrid commercial opportunity, doing a restaurant with an Airbnb, say up top or attached, or multiple Airbnbs as part of the restaurant. Individual units, of course, but there's just a variety of things that I have interest in, and I'm open to exploring a lot of them. And I think one of the things I've also learned is that for me to just say that short-term rentals is the way for me to go to achieve my entrepreneurial life and my freedom and whatever else, I think is kind of an arrogant way for me to look at it, because me saying that's the way, like, how do I know that that's the way? It is a way for sure, and it has been, and it will be. But does that mean that it's the only way for me? It's like, I don't know what I don't know. That's what I've learned so much in the past, call it 10 years, even through my career. I never wanted to do any of the things I did in my career. I never planned to do those things. Actually, a lot of times I said I didn't want to do anything clinical. I didn't want to be a salesperson, and I didn't want to be in a corporate office. I did all those things, and I loved every one of them until I got burned out, right?
What is that? What's the key takeaway there, would you say for us? The
key takeaway is that you don't know as much as you think you know. Like,
facts.
And that's me. That's being direct. I'm saying it that way because that's how I talk to myself, and it cuts through the bullshit, right? I'm not, giving myself a pat on the back all the time and just saying, oh no, it's okay. You didn't really mean it or know any better. How could you know? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't know as much as I think I know. And that is the case. That's still the case. And that's what keeps me driving to learn more, because I want to get to a point where I can, think like that, where I'm, where I'm as good as maybe I think I am. And so anyways, I think that at the end of the day, doing things in putting yourself in that position, that perspective, like on the ground, is the number one way to learn whether or not you're going to like something, whether or not you're good at it right out of the gate, or whether or not you got things to learn, and that's okay. But the reality is that you need to put yourself in that position. If it's something you think you might like to do, don't feel so confident that you're going to know that you won't enjoy it. Give yourself some room, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we don't know as much as we think we know. You're not going to be able to foresee everything, and if I would have thought that, then I would have never had my career, and I would not be in the position that I am right now because of it.
I love that, because I think what you're indirectly saying is right here: experiment, fail, learn, repeat. That's the mantra here in the lab. So yeah, love how you put a bow on that. But you're also saying, like, I always say, it's like when you do an experiment to collect the data and then make more decisions based on that. I think what I'm hearing you say too is don't just just dive in, collect the data, make the next best decision with the information that you have, right? At least that's how I'm able to kind of digest how you were able to summarize and how I connect with it as well. Now it's interesting that you said within the next year or so, and again, whether that's true or not, or whether that's later on, you kind of have this, you're very aware, and I think we all should all be aware that not to just put ourselves in like, this is the only thing that I do, and therefore I do not see other opportunities. This is blind spots. Like, I'm a short-term rental investor. Like, no, you're an investor, right? Or you're a problem solver, right? That's how I look at it anyways. And I would encourage everybody else to do that. With that said, what excites you going into, whether it's real estate or not? What is currently exciting you right now in the marketplace? Actually, maybe I'll do this. I'll say, like, we'll put a real estate bucket, what excites you, and then outside of real estate, and I have an idea or two of what that might be, because I do call you the AI king. But what excites you that you see is an opportunity in the real estate space, if it's not STR?
Some of the things you've talked about with insurance is interesting. I don't know if I'm at the point where I'm excited about it yet, because that means that if I'm excited about it, I'm probably going to pursue it. so nice. I'm gonna talk to you more about that, because I do think that's interesting, and I think that this space is evolving like everything else. It's kind of a living, breathing entity that evolves. It's fluid. It changes over time. It adapts with the needs of the market, and so the insurance piece could be very well another great play, and I mean, from the sounds of it, it sounds like you're doing a great job with it.
We're making it rain, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
And I don't know if I'm not, maybe if this is a secret, then no. Cut it out.
No, of course, there's no secrets out here. It's execution. The proofs and formulas are already out there. You just got to execute. There's no secrets. Yeah. But no, it's, and I was just joking, because I like having fun with you. It's good energy. But no, we're I think we're onto something, and we're still learning every day as well. But how about this? I know you and I were geeking out about, like, potentially boutique hotels. Do you still see that as on the horizon? By the way, between now and then, I've learned I should say that lightly. I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know. Put it this way, around boutique hotels. Is that something that's still on the horizon for you, or is that?
Yeah, there's one down the street from me now that is for sale, but it's not in a great area, but it's not far from being in a great area. And I think in time it will be a solid spot. And frankly, I think it will cash flow probably once it gets, once time catches up to it. I think it'll be 800,000 a year, probably, from a 12 unit. 800 to $1 million a year in revenue.
Damn. Yeah, and there's a value at play there, right? Like, you gotta. Yeah. That's the sweet spot we were talking about at the conference, right? I'm all in for. I'm a long-term investor, so I don't want to push it too much when it comes to buying in, like, a C class or something. But if you can kind of, Run the numbers, run the play. I that excites me. I want to do that too. I want to at least get in the hotelier
Yeah.
kind of bucket
Oh,
as well.
let me. I'll share with you something that's kind of hot off the press. Um, and it's really, call it my press, which is very unofficial. So it's not like the New York Times or a big paper printed it or anything. But I will say that this seems to be an interesting idea that me and a buddy hatched today. Um, using swimming pools.
Mhm.
So Swimply, the app, allows you to rent people's swimming pools, right?
Stop it.
So
There's an app called Swimply.
yeah.
All
So
right. What a time to be alive, but okay.
there's a home and a swimming pool attached to the home, right?
Mhm.
That's the traditional model. There's a guy last year I remember featured for this app. It was some news article broke on it, and somebody pretty much blew their mind that this guy made over $100,000 a year renting out his swimming pool. So the idea,
This
yeah.
is wild. This is news. I didn't even know this was a thing, by the way. So this is double news to me.
So the idea is to, instead of have a home with a swimming pool,
Mhm.
just buy some land and build a swimming pool, like
Mm.
a nice swimming pool. Maybe with an outdoor bar, with a or outdoor kitchen.
Like a
Um,
tiki
you know,
bar or something like that.
yeah, yeah. And so put $150,000 into the swimming pool, and maybe 50 grand into the lot, and you got $200,000 into something that may very well produce 80, 120 a year.
Mm.
And the backup plan to this is that if the numbers don't work ultimately, if it doesn't perform, worst case scenario, then you've bought enough land to now build the house in front of the pool.
Dude, you're a genius. I love the backup exit strategy. That's crazy. Oh my god. Wait, that is hilarious. I feel like you could use that to fund the house. So right, you could literally right.
That's a conversation I had today with a friend of mine down the street, and because they're looking at buying land. I'm like, you could build the pool first, have the property generating income during construction.
That's crazy. And that's what we were talking about recently, like even car washes and stuff like that. They look at MRR companies or with monthly recurring revenue. If you do a membership model, you're evaluated higher, right? So you have a list of like
Mm,
100 people in the
yep,
neighborhood paying $20 a month, all
100%,
access.
100%.
Damn, bro. Why is Jason always cooking something? This man does not stop. Slow it down for the rest of us, man. So let's real quick, because I know we chopped it up here for knew we'd go over time. It's always a good time chatting with you, man. What's the tell me about your AI slash interests and you have a management, marketing, hotelier background, and yet and obviously medical devices. Where does the tech come in? I feel like you just have a knack. Do you just have a knack for tech, or is that like something you've always kind of like dabbled in on your own personal time?
Yeah, so it started out on my own personal time for sure, but eventually in my career, it worked its way into to each one of those roles. So when I was a clinical running the mapping system, doing the procedures, I was looking for ways to improve the software, come up with new algorithms, new functionality for the mapping system, and eventually I put together a document with some illustrations for some user interface upgrades and some actually some rather functional algorithms that the team could build that would create a whole host of new functionalities that would be extremely clinically valuable. That got me exposed to the R&D side of the business, and so I did do some work with those teams, throughout my career. But that said, you know, that's where a lot of my brain power goes when I'm thinking, or when I have some downtime, is like I'm trying to create something, trying to creatively solve some kind of problem. And oddly enough, when ChatGPT disrupted the whole technology industry, and really the whole world, I was looking to create AI chatbot, one that actually works, like not a chatbot that we see today on the websites that is just horrible and frustrating. Those are like keyword activated, but rather, something that mimics the abilities of a large language model like ChatGPT. And I felt like this is the time when we could really use that as hosts. And so I set off down that path, and I ended up getting an ad for a company called Guest Guru. And Guest Guru was very early stage. I responded to the ad. I inevitably was whitelisted on their waiting list. I got set up on the onboarding call, and I now have all 5 of my properties running on Guest Guru, which now is my I think it's my favorite, most exciting new software in the short-term rental industry, for sure. And I've been using it for 2 or 3 months now, and I'm also actively working with a team as an advisor for them at this point. And we've made some significant advancements in, I think, the way the product is designed, but also how you can integrate it into your daily operation. So at this point, the property, if you have multiple properties, you get a message from the guest. Guest Guru intercepts that message, forwards it to you in a text message, and then also sends you a generated reply that it suggests that you would reply to this guest with. And so each property has its own contact card, which the team has put together these great automatic contact cards that have your property photos automatically in the contact photo. And so each property has its own conversation, its own thread with a message from the guest, the date, and what they said, and then a reply from the artificial intelligence. And then it says, if you approve this message, press 2 or 3 keys to approve. And so instead of me having to type these messages out now, I would say 70 or 80% of my messages are now automated from AI. And I have it tailored to speak casually, because that's how I speak to guests intentionally. I don't want them to feel like I'm a company. I want them to feel like I'm an individual, like they're renting from, a homeowner. So Guest Guru does this perfectly in probably 80% of instances. And that number, the reason I bring that up is because that number, it was less than 50% when I first started. But they've made some significant improvements on the back end to their language model that has significantly increased the quality of the responses that are proposed by the guru or the AI. So it's been exciting. I had 4 properties on that up until recently. Like yesterday, I added the 5th, and I intentionally did that because I wanted to see if there was a difference, how I felt emotionally about the 4 versus the 1. And so it got to the point now in the past several weeks where if I got a message from this one property that wasn't on Guest Guru, I was like, shit. I was like, that means I got to open up the app and go in and type it out. And so when it evoked that kind of response from me on a regular basis, I was like, oh, that means this thing has value. Like if I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, if I feel inconvenienced and like, oh, I've got to type it, because you'd be surprised, you'd be shocked at some of the responses that this thing comes up with. And actually, I'm going to read one real quick. It's the one I sent you a while back, April 6th. From Stephanie, she says, thank you for this information. Our flight in Jersey got delayed and doesn't take off until 4 Eastern time. So we'll be checking in later than expected. Sorry about that. Guest Guru responds, says, no worries, Stephanie. Just a reminder, there's a self check-in with a smart lock so you can arrive whenever you'd like. Simply follow the check-in instructions from the trip section in the Airbnb app when you get here. Have a safe flight and enjoy your time in Nashville.
Wow.
And all I had to do was respond
Yes.
the number 13 to approve that message. And otherwise, I mean, however many characters that is, how many words,
No,
you
man,
gotta.
that's a game changer.
And I've got some that are more complex than that. Sometimes they'll mention 2 or 3 different things, and so the AI will acknowledge the things that it says and then address it where appropriate. And then it always wraps it up in a bow and like, let me know, have a safe time. It's super professional. And so I'm able to do.
It doesn't sound like they would have any idea that it's AI at all.
Oh, 100%. They don't have no idea. Yeah.
Yo, this is crazy. It's so funny. Like, honestly, I owe you not an apology, but I need to put some respect on your work for this specific thing, because you had told me about it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, man. And while that was my response, and I think you just kind of putting it into perspective just kind of clicked on a whole nother level too. I think part of the reason, Jason, and I probably need to I'll chat with you offline on how can get in on this action. It's just we don't have as much volume anymore because we are doing long term. But for the ones that are hybrids, though, we still would want to have that there, because I would want it to get smarter as it, over time. And so, if anything, would have been helpful to have it way back then, because it would have been way more. But there is this one property we're managing that is technically still a hybrid. So, yeah.
Well, there's a link in my bio on Instagram that will give a discount as well. So if you or anybody else wants to check it out, that's certainly one. That's the reason I bring up the piece about, like, it used to not be so great when I first started. 2 or 3 months ago, I was approving less than 50% of the messages.
Yeah.
There is an auto host feature where you can be hands off, but this is the SMS mode that I use and that most people are using as the responses improve. The point of me bringing that up is that what this product is and what AI is today is the worst it's ever going to be.
Ooh,
and
love that.
So the fact that we're at 80% today, for me, 80% approval rate, and it used to be less than 50, like where it's going from here, it's only on its way up. And the team, Tom and Michael and Paul, those guys, they're working hard on it, and it's iterating on a regular basis. So anyways, that's what I'm most excited about. And it has nothing to do with me being affiliated with it. I'm affiliated because it's a game-changing product, and it's something that the industry needs. And at the end of the day, at this point, it's really providing some value.
For sure. That's what's up, man. So let's put it out there into the universe, because I'm a big universe guy. I know you might hate me for this, Jason, but I want to be able to say, hey, man, Jason said he was going to do this. Then he said it. It's May 9th, 2020. We 2023 already? Jeez. May 9th, 2023. What do you want to put out there into the universe for you, and so that experimentation can keep an eye on what you're doing? What do you project? What are you putting out there into the universe, brother?
Yeah, so I think, for me, traditionally, I haven't been, a big social guy in terms of, online presence. But, started in December, started making some content around AI, actually, and a few other things that, have garnered some attention, thankfully. Opened up a lot of interesting conversations, but also, I've gotten into some consulting, like you mentioned. And, I think what I'm trying to do now, to go back to, what my passion is, and, it's ultimately helping and serving other people. I'm going to open up my calendar a bit for consulting, to continue doing that. I've been doing that over the past year, and I just take clients, rather fairly selectively. Just haven't wanted to do a lot of it in terms of occupying or obligating time. But moving forward, and looking at where I want my career to go in this space, I enjoy helping people. I've consulted with 2 people today, and it's enlightening and rewarding to see the light bulbs go off. And one of the conversations today I know is going to result in $30,000 or $40,000 difference in their annual.
Yeah,
revenue.
okay. I need to get on your calendar again. I like those numbers. Jeez. No,
Yeah,
I gotta say, I gotta say, I gotta say, I really enjoyed your sessions because you're a great teacher. I don't know if it's you just have it. I get a lot of coaching, a lot of paid coaching, and I thought the one session still stands apart when we went through the dynamic pricing a session together. So I really appreciate that. I know you were kind of giving a segue of how people can get in touch with you. Before then, who is actually a good who is, and I shouldn't say good, but who can you help and who can you not help? So I think that's helpful for those of us to hear, like, hey, I kind of like what Jason talked about today. A lot of different things. Has a lot of great background, clearly savvy, and he has a proof of concept, and he's doing it. But like, who's a good fit for you when you think of the folks who get on a call, just to give a little bit of context?
I think that because I know the struggle to get the confidence to move forward with a venture like this, like I really, despite my background and the things I've accomplished in my career, I still struggled with finding the comfort in really pursuing it. So folks that are in that position, I feel like it'd be a helpful conversation to talk to somebody that is lacking not necessarily the motivation, but rather the confidence to do what they feel like they need to do. And that could be with Airbnb or not, but from that person to the person who's about to buy their first property, or they're looking for a property to buy, and they're trying to qualify the property as to whether or not it makes sense financially, how to run the numbers on it. And really, anybody from that point all the way up to someone that's launched, maybe they even have multiple properties. I've already done consulting with a number of people that have multiple properties, but they haven't mastered dynamic pricing yet, and they really aren't squeezing all the juice out of the orange. So that's something that you and I talked about. You have multiple properties, several people at this point that we've had some fruitful discussions just about how to optimize the pricing side of it. Beyond that, it's portfolio strategy and almost anything. But I think that if you get to a point where, say, from a pricing, dynamic pricing discussion, or if you already know what percentile your pricing falls within, or if you already know how your property is performing last year versus this year on ADR, revenue, RevPAR, etc., and you can overlay that data and graph it out and see it line over line. If you know how to do that stuff, you can answer some of these questions, qualifying questions, and I can run through that with somebody if they want to reach out. But if you already know those answers, then chances are you're probably already pretty well equipped. But if you want another perspective from me, then by all means. But if you don't know the answers to that, and you also aren't confident in starting your Airbnb business, anywhere in between that, which is a large continuum, then by all means, I would love to talk to anybody to help. And you can find me on Instagram at JW Reece, JWREECE.
JW Reece. And guys, I'm saying this as Jason's a buddy of mine, so obviously I'm gonna plug him, but I say that to say this. I do this all the time, and I hire coaches or consultants, and you guys know I spend a lot every year to do that, to show me my blind spots. And that's the thing, right? I think even though I know some of those things that Jason said and some of them I don't, I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta do that too. Sometimes it's that, shoot, you didn't do this, or shoot, you didn't even consider this because you thought you knew what you knew. And so whether it's Jason or not, it's keeping that mindset of like, you're constantly learning, this space is constantly evolving. And so, I encourage Experiment Nation and anyone here to continue to just hone your craft. And obviously I'm very happy today to be with my brother here who does this himself as well. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. So I wanted to salute you, brother, for that. And thank you for offering tons of value today. And I would encourage everyone to check out what you're doing at JW Reece, his Instagram handle. Check out his link too if you want to connect with him and see what he's up to, or even tap into some of his one-on-ones. But man, Jason, brother, you over delivered once again. It was really good to get into the weeds, into some of the things I thought I knew, but then we covered a little bit more. So man, I really wanted to appreciate you for stepping to the lab today, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. You've got a good thing going, and your reputation precedes you. So I appreciate you having me on.
Hey man, iron sharpens iron. And just like that, we are out.
Experiment Nation, your host Ruben, Kanya here. Listen, if you're looking for a who in your next steps as a short-term rental host or Airbnb host or operator, that is, definitely make sure that you reach out to me directly by booking a call to see how you can get yourself to the next level. If you've never turned a house and repurposed it into a short-term rental or Airbnb, if you don't know what pricing tools to use, how to set up your listing so that's best optimized, how to set up a PMS software, let alone if you don't know what a PMS software is and why it's important, to, again, having dynamic pricing as a tool to stay ahead of your competition, to always be booked and not only be able to pay your mortgage, but cash flow some, and always make sure that you're giving your guests an experience that will have multiple other guests want to stay at your property, how to automate reviews, how to automate check-in details to messages for the guests, and so that you are no longer working in the business, but you're working on the business, how to build a virtual cleaning team. All of the above, make sure that you go to experimentrealestate.com/hospitable-hosts, where you can book a call to see if you're a good fit for the coaching program that I am offering only to limited partners. If you're a part of Experiment Nation, if you're new to Experiment Nation, well, it's all about having the right individuals help you guide you through the next steps of where you're trying to go in your experiments. So if you're looking for guidance, if you're seeking out guidance, someone to help you, I am rolling out a new coaching program that is very hands-on. Therefore, there's only limited spots available, where you will work with me directly and I will help you take your short-term rental to, or your long-term rental into a short-term rental if you've never been a host before, or help you get to the next level. So make sure you go to experimentrealestate.com/hospitable-hosts so that you can take your experiments in the short-term rental space to the next level with a guide and someone who's been there before. Again, I look forward to seeing you on the call. Make sure you book a discovery call. We'll see if we're a good fit for one another. And again, be sure if you're driving, if you're currently not available, to take the URL down. It will be in the bio description. Looking forward to seeing you on the other side, and continue to experiment wisely. Happy hosting.